soon he began to slow. There was so much to look at, so much that was strange, so much that was new and vast, and so very palpably alive. The trees dipped down their branches, laden with leaves broad enough to sew into trousers. He passed a tree with a vast termite nest as big as a bathtub growing around it.
As timing went, this was close to miraculous. What was also wonderful, to Joseph's eye, was how powerful Mrs. F seemed from the second she came into view. Somehow, she seemed to tower over Grice, stopping him and Clarence dead in their tracks. Whatever her reasons for being late, at that moment, Joseph forgave her. "I think that will do, don't you?" she said to the headmaster. It was a demand, not a question. Grice didn't know how to react. "Mrs. Farrelly."
One by one, our neighbours leave, talking to each other in hushed voices. Jeevan and I walk together back towards the garden, so close that our arms touch, his eyes glistening. He turns his face away, brushing his nose roughly with the cuff of his sleeve. My throat is tight and I can hardly breathe. The words interest and repayment echo through my mind as I realise what has happened.
In the middle of our country there was a city. In the middle of the city there was a garden. The city was grey and sad, but the garden was bright and beautiful. Once, before the war came, there were trees on every corner. Now, this was the last garden left. The war went on, and still Zara looked after her garden. There were pear trees and nut trees and flowers and herbs. Zara grew figs and apricots and all kinds of vegetables for the people of our city.
"Come on now." The guard gripped her arm, making her wince. He pulled her to the cobbled walkway, sloping downwards towards the celebrations below. "I don't want to see you here again." The Queen's jewels jangled in her pouch. There were sapphires and star rubies set in heavy, shiny gold. How many jewels did one person need anyway? And these were just the ones from the drawer in the rosewood table by the bed. Pity she'd had to leave so quickly when she heard voices outside the door.
I disappeared on the night before my 12th birthday, July the 28th, 1988. Only now I can at least tell the whole extraordinary story, the true story. Kensuke made me promise that I would say nothing at all, until at least 10 years had passed.
Watkins double provided decisive, but the return of Bounce Laurels following Zoom on float with an ankle injury was similarly important. Eli on his side or a different proposition when it's available and the records with every round in this season proves it. When Surrey starts, they have a win rate of 76% in the Premier League. When it does not, that number drops to 25%.
All I can do is lie there in the half-light of my bedroom, my mouth turned down so far, until I feel a tear trickle down from my eye. Being disbelieved when you're telling the truth must be the worst feeling in the world.
Scooter McClay decided to do something, there was very little that anyone could do to stop him. Everything about Scooter screamed determination, from the tips of his unruly red hair that stuck out as if he'd been plugged into a power socket, to the very ends of his toenails that grew so quickly he needed to cut them every 2 days.
He was awakened one night by a strange noise. At first he thought it might have been some kind of animal, and it frightened him. But as the sleep cleared from his head, he realised that the noise was coming from the cot next to him. Squid was crying. "You okay?" Stanley whispered. Squid's head jerked round. He sniffed and caught his breath. "Yeah, I'm fine," he whispered, and sniffed.
Boy pushed a pile of vegetables round his plate. He wasn't an ordinary boy, he was the king, King Edwin Flashypants the First. There wasn't a King Edwin Flashypants the second or third yet, but everybody in Edwin's little kingdom thought it was a great name, that there were bound to be loads of kings called Edwin Flashypants in the future. But even though the boy was special, the vegetables were very, very ordinary. There was a cabbage and spinach and something that drooped like the nose of an old...
The far end of England, a land of rocks and moorland, stretches itself out into the blue-green sea. Between its high headlands lie tiny sheltering harbours where the fishing boats hide when the winter storms are blowing. One of these harbours is so small and the entrance between its great stone breakwaters is so narrow that the fishermen called it the Mousel. The people who lived in the cottages around the harbour grew fond of the name, and they call their village Mousel to this day.